Operation Sindoor, India was able to cripple the terror headquarters of the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Muridke and Bahawalpur using precision strikes. Several terror headquarters and launch pads were flattened by the forces, but the breathing room in the wake of the ceasefire has given Pakistan the chance to regroup, retrain and revamp the terror infrastructure. In fact, exclusive visuals accessed by CNN News 18, those on the right side of your screen, show that while the devastation caused by India has been laid bare before the world, Friday prayers have resumed at these sites by terror commanders. Now, this was a concern raised by the BSF just a few days back. Listen in.
इस प्रकार की इनपुट्स है कि दुश्मन को जो भारी नुकसान पहुंचा है तो उसका बदला लेने के लिए वो फिर घुसपैठ या उसकी जैसी क्रॉस बॉर्डर फायरिंग जैसी किसी प्लान को वो अंजाम दे सकते हैं।
दुश्मन की जो एक्टिविटी होती है उन चीज़ों को दोबारा रिस्टोर करता है। जितने भी इनके जो तंजीम हैं, जितने भी इनके टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, एकदम डिस्ट्रक्शन के बाद भी दोबारा ये अपने को रिऑर्ग करते हैं। तो हम ये कह सकें आने वाले टाइम में फिर इन्होंने दोबारा रिऑर्ग होना है और फिर कोई इस टाइप की एक्टिविटी करनी है तो हमारी उन पर पैनी नज़र है। हमारी रिसोर्स से इंफॉर्मेशन मिलती रहती है हमको और वो कोशिश हम यही करते हैं कि इनको जो है नोटिस में रखें और कोई ऐसा एक्शन पर, जैसे सर ने बताया, प्रीएम्प्टिव एक्शन के लिए, उन चीज़ों के लिए हम हमेशा तैयार रहते हैं।
Meanwhile, Pakistan is witnessing an agricultural crisis amid tensions with India over the abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty. Reports suggest that the country is staring at a bleak sowing season with a major dip in water storage at its two key dams, the Mangla Dam on the river Jhelum and the Tarbela Dam on the Indus River. Now, as per the report, there has also been a decrease in the inflows of the Chenab River due to the regulation of water flow from India. Experts say the looming crisis is what prompted Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to rake up the water dispute at a UN Glacier Preservation Conference in Tajikistan last week. Now, with signs that the Pakistani state is rebooting the terror infrastructure while feeling the squeeze of the Indus River, which many Pakistani leaders are calling a looming water bomb, what should be India's next course of action? Is it time to adopt the Israeli model of preemptive strikes and punitive economic blockades against Pakistan? Joining us on the broadcast are Tilak Devashar, author and former member of the NSAB, Mr. Shashank, the Foreign Secretary, as well as Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of the ORF. Mr. Sareen, I'll come to you first, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on CNN News 18. Mr. Sareen, these visuals that we're seeing on our screen right now, this revamping as well as the devastation that has been caused in Muridke and Bahawalpur, yet all the security forces are saying that the terror groups are rebooting their operations in these areas. Is it time for preemptive strikes once again? Should that be the new normal and be put in action as soon as possible?
Look, I think the doctrine of preemption was already announced way back in 2019. This time around, the new doctrine, which many are calling the Modi doctrine, says that any act of terrorism, will be seen as an act of war, and India will retaliate to it. So yes, I think both are on the table. And yes, you are right. What we have seen is that despite the beating that the Pakistanis have got, there are a lot of videos of terrorists from the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed regrouping, making fiery speeches, trying to recruit new people, almost a kind of a free hand given to them by the jihadi general or field marshal of Pakistan. So clearly they're trying to take things back to the 90s when it was an open kind of a invitation to anybody to come and do jihad against India. Now, if that is the path they want to go on, then I think the Indian position is very clear. Do the Pakistanis really want to go down that path? And given the fact that these groups are now operating openly, I think it gives a lot of ammunition to Indian, the External Affairs Ministry and some of our other agencies to show to the world what Pakistan is all about. Having said that, I think India is also working on what you might call the non-kinetic means. And of course, water is one of the most potent weapons that we have and we are now going to use. But again, we have very clearly told the Pakistanis that if you were to dismantle the infrastructure of terrorism and behave like normal people, I don't think there is any incentive for India to hold or disrupt water supplies to Pakistan. Yes, we might renegotiate some aspects of the Indus Water Treaty, but I don't think we are in a mood to disrupt water flows to Pakistan, provided blood and water don't flow together. So I think that is the trajectory we are on, but we should be aware that Pakistan is both going to wage jihadism against us and they are going to resort to lawfare in various international forums to try and pin India down and tie India's hands insofar as water and some of these other measures that we are considering taking are concerned. So I think we need to be aware of how the Pakistanis are going to play this out.
Right, but Mr. Deveshar, decode the doctrine further for us in the wake of Operation Sindoor. One was the fact that if there is a terror attack, we will counter-strike and target the entire terror infrastructure, even extend it to the military. But if we see the movement of terrorists, if we see their regrouping, something that the BSF has pointed out as well, is the doctrine open to taking preemptive strikes? Are we still in a situation where we wait for an attack before acting against those terror sites? Or should we now pretty much put the Israeli model into action? Any movement we see of terrorists, any movement of regrouping of terror, of the terror infrastructure on the Pakistani side should be met with force from the Indian side?
You know that, as Sushant mentioned, that doctrine of preemption was laid out in 2019. So, isn't there the difference? What happened in Muridke and Bawalpura, these are the headquarters of these terrorist tanzeems. If you see the BSF sees somebody coming across the LOC or coming across the IB, those are individual actions. And I'm sure that, the BSF knows exactly what the rules of engagement and what is to be done. But there is a difference. I think what the Prime Minister talked about was an act of terror will be treated as an act of war. Now, whether preemption applies there and depends on the scale of the attack. So I think, I'm not very clear at the moment, but the doctrine of preemption is certainly there. I mean, Balakot strike itself on the Jaish camp was on the basis of preemption. So there is no confusion on that regard. But what is the scale of the attack? I think there will be some thought gone to them. And for the BSF, anybody crossing the LOC or the IB, this is open season.
Right. And Mr. Shashank, when it comes to India's diplomatic stand, considering the crackdown on terror across the border, as well as the use of the Indus Water Treaty, putting it in abeyance, regulating the water flow, can we see any international pressure on India, or is the Modi government on some strong diplomatic wicket that is helping it move this agenda forward?
No, pressure means what? I mean, the Chinese have been making a lot of statements. But, we know that in China, there is no independent think tank. And therefore, for us to feel that anybody who speaks to our various channels is giving a very learned discourse, I think that's not correct. So we should take it into account that China itself does not bother about the interests of the lower riparians. And we know that the lower riparians in Southeast Asia are very worried on the activities of China and especially about the Mekong River. And therefore, they have set up a special group to continue to negotiate with the Chinese in a collective manner that the Chinese do not take rash actions. Now, what the Chinese are trying to tell, or at least what they are being reported in the Indian channels, shows that what they are saying is that, we can do what we like in POK, we can do what we like in Baluchistan, sending our troops and all that, but you cannot get away or put in abeyance your Indus Water Treaty, which was based on the principles of good, friendly, neighborly relations. In fact, the first issue which had arisen when the treaty was signed was that Pakistan said India does not want our independent existence. And therefore, India wants us to be a part of India. And that was the major worry at that time. But over a period of time, that issue is forgotten, that India went there for friendship, for good neighborly relations. What they are trying to do is now to destroy the whole edifice of good neighborliness in South Asia. They have been doing it to other countries also within their own country. I mean, they are not able to take care of their civilian populations. So therefore, what India has done, India has only told that it is an abeyance, and we'll see what happens. We will not give you any information. It will for us to do. Please tell me if in Europe or anywhere else we have this kind of generous treaties which are signed on behalf of the World Bank, and the Indians had agreed that India and Pakistan would ever lasting peace would be there between the two countries, and there will be all kinds of friendships. I think that has not happened. So therefore,
Right.
we have to make it very clear. And then we find that the Pakistanis are raising this issue of the Indus Water Treaty, even if we are talking of glaciers, you are talking of the climate changes and all that. So they bring in all these issues. I think that shows that they are not really very sincere about the interests of their own people. Otherwise, if they're interested in looking after the interests of their people, they should take care of the terrorists and stop the terrorist training camps.
Right. And Sushant Sareen, let's talk about the terror infrastructure once again. Now, we've seen Pakistan has, even though it's gone with the begging bowl around the world, there are enough takers to give Pakistan money. Now, when it comes to this breathing room that has been given, let's say, to the terrorists in Pakistan, where the Pakistani state is also funneling so much, not just financial support, but even political support to the terror infrastructure, how much of a danger is this for the Indian security grid, this breathing room we've given to Pakistan in the wake of Operation Sindoor?
Look, I think we'll have to wait and see. Look, we can't be in a constant state of, war or taking action. Because again, although you mentioned the Israeli model, but, India is not facing something like Hamas or something like the Palestinian Authority. We are facing a proper country with a proper army and air force and with nuclear weapons. So I think those comparisons do not quite hold in the Indian case. But I get your point. What you're saying is that, yes, there is a space below the nuclear threshold, and that are we giving them enough space or giving them enough leeway so that they can continue to agitate on this terrorism issue. But I think it might be one thing to see whether this is just hot air being blown by some of these terrorists inside Pakistan, or is this actually going to translate into more action against India? You also must appreciate that the kind of beating that the Pakistanis have got, I think, would have apprised them of the dangers and the risks and the costs involved in continuing with this jihadist adventurism against India. I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would be thinking about it. And I think there would be a lot of tentativeness within Pakistan on whether they can go forward with that old model of the 1990s that we were speaking about earlier, or do they need to think this thing new? Please don't forget, Ayushman, that there is a very real possibility that the Pakistanis might not try and do anything from India's western border, but might try and activate India's eastern border to create trouble for us. After all, you have a kind of jihadist or semi-jihadist regime in Bangladesh, people who are flirting with these Islamist elements and giving them a free run in that place. And you've had people in this Yunus's government who have been making all kinds of statements against India, including trying to take over India's northeast. No one less than Muhammad Yunus has been speaking about this. Now, the old man might be 1 foot in the grave, but it does not stop his Islamism from coming out. And I think we need to be aware that the Pakistanis are acting in close conjunction with the Bangladeshis at this point in time. And we might see the Eastern Front also open up. So we'll have to wait and see how this entire thing transpires as we go forward.
Right. But if the DNA is to bleed India with 1,000 cuts, even if you are thrown back to the Stone Age, there still seems to be that sentiment that we will still continue to hit India, if not with missiles, at least with stones. So I think that has been the DNA of the Pakistani state for the longest time. Tilak Deveshwar, I'll give you the final word when it comes to the Indus Water Treaty. Tangibly, what is the leverage that India holds, given the fact that Pakistan is now stating that they're facing an agricultural crisis?
You see, you have a lot of leverage. And it's not only because you're holding the treaty in abeyance. Fact of the matter is that Pakistan has run its water resources to the ground. They face an absolute water scarcity very soon. And on top of it, when you hold the Indus water in abeyance, which means that you're not sharing data with them of the western rivers, right? They don't know how much water is coming, when it is going to come. Is it going to come in a flood? Is it going to come in a trickle? By not sharing this hydrological data, the farmer does not know how much water is going to be in the canals. especially now that the Kharif sowing season is on. So this is what complicates the matter, because their water situation is already in crisis. Both Mangla and Tarvela have hit dead levels. They can't release any water for the crops to make up the lag which is not coming in the canals. So they are rattled, and their concern is genuine that it will impact food security, it will impact livelihood. And as you know, there is no life without water.
Absolutely. Tilak Devashar, Sushant Sareen, as well as Mr. Shashank, thank you so much for decoding the leverage that India holds over Pakistan, be it the water situation or even the action against terror. We will continue to track all the developments coming in on that front, but that's all we have to pack in on The Heart.